Good evening. This is the Senate Finance Committee. It's Thursday, February 22nd, and we are on voting list number 7. Our first bill is Senate Bill 509. And Patrick, you want to take us through the bill?
Sure. Senate Bill 509 is the Commercial Financing Small Business Truth in Lending Act. This is a bill that actually passed out of the committee last year and the year before, I think. It establishes a regulatory framework for commercial financing transactions, including certain open-end, closed-end, and sales-based financing transactions, as well as factoring and renewal financing transactions. Specifically, it establishes disclosure requirements on providers of commercial financing, including required information on fees and finance charges, the annual percentage rate or APR, for which there are required methods for calculating that, and repayment terms. The Office of the Commissioner of Financial Regulation must adopt regulations to implement the bill, and these regulations must be substantially the same as regulations adopted in New York regarding commercial financing. Senator Kramer, the sponsor, is offering 2 amendments. The first would exempt premium finance agreements from the bill, and the second amendment is one that would clarify some reporting requirements. It's a amendment was requested by an entity, 5Serve, and it clarifies that a certain annual review is only for companies that use an opt-in method of projecting sales volume for certain types of transactions, and not for those who use a more standard historical method.
Move favorably as amended.
Second. Senator Kramer moved favorable. Senator Klausmeyer second. All in favor of the amended bill, Senate 509. Okay, unanimous. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead. Just go.
The next bill is Senate Bill 633, the Maryland Self-Service Storage Act. It was a bill that was heard yesterday. This is a bill that authorizes a self-service storage facility operator to advertise a lien sale via email or a website without the occupant's prior written authorization in the storage agreement. And Senator Klausmeyer is offering a couple of amendments. The first would alter what must be stated in the rental agreement so that it says that advertisement of the auction at the sole discretion of the operator may be in the newspaper, by email, or on a website. And then there was an amendment that would move up the effective date of the bill to June 1st.
Any questions? Senator Washington?
Will you describe what this bill does again?
Yeah, so this is when there's a storage unit that's in default, and to satisfy the lien on it, there's going to be an auction to sell the contents of the unit. And so there's a requirement that there be notice of that, an advertisement. And it used to be the case that you could only do it in the newspaper, and then the law changed so that you could do it by email. You can notify the individual of this auction was going to take place by email or on the website. And so what this is, but you had to give the individual who's leasing the unit, you had to get their acknowledgement in the contract when they would rent the unit. And this takes away that requirement that be stated in the contract, so that this advertising by lien sale can take place by email or website without that being actually acknowledged in a written authorization in the storage agreement.
So when the person goes and purchases a storage unit, right now, current law, they can check a box and say, I want to be notified to receive if I fail to pay, and then my stuff goes out to auction. You're saying that that's current law, and then I'll be notified if it's at auction.
So what it just takes away the requirement that the individual that they get an acknowledgement from the individual in the contract that the notice of the auction can be done by email or on the website of the individual.
Still, you're confusing me a little bit because so you, under the current law, you can get notified that you will receive, that your stuff will be up for auction through email and also through the paper. Is that right?
Let me say it this way.
Yeah.
So it's currently the case that an individual must be notified that the contents of their storage unit could be auctioned if they go into default. And then there's how that auction can be done. You know, can that notice of that auction be posted in the newspaper? Can it be communicated by email? Can it be on a website? So what this says is that the operator of that unit can provide that notice to the public, you know, that this auction is going to take place by email or on a website. But in order to do that, they first have to get an acknowledgement that that advertisement can be done that way in the rental agreement. And the person has to acknowledge in the rental agreement that that is a way that that notice of the lien sale can take place.
But under this bill, you're removing that piece.
Correct. That requirement that the individual acknowledge in the agreement that advertisement of the lien sale can take place in that manner.
And why?
I think the testimony was that it's an effective way to notify individuals of the lien sale on the website. That the newspaper is not a reliable means, you know, of communicating notice of the lien sale to the public to generate interest in the auction.
Yeah.
And so the testimony was that it's not really necessary to get that acknowledgement.
I would argue that under the current law, it's not enough notification to the family of that owns that is renting or leasing that unit. Me personally, and I don't mean to go down this road, but my family was evicted, and then all of our stuff had to be placed in one of these units, and it was in the storage. And unfortunately, my mom couldn't keep up with those payments and wasn't notified that there was an auction and that the auction existed and the auction was there and that she can go purchase if she wants to. So I'm a little concerned that we're going to remove the acknowledgement that there could be that there could be an auction, because, well, that's what I'm hearing, Madam Chair. So I'm trying to understand because it's bringing up red flags for me. So I'm trying to understand like what this does.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's your bill. Yeah, I mean, they're just modernizing it because the newspaper, nobody hardly gets newspapers anymore. So they're doing it by email and I believe certified mail too. They send out letters to these people that, you know, it's gonna work, you know, you're behind and they have to clear these things out because that's their business.
I understand.
So,
I understand that part, but
I just need to clarify one thing, I think.
Yeah.
I just want to make clear that so an individual has to be given direct notice from the storage facility that before they can proceed with an auction. So that direct notice piece is a separate requirement under the law.
Okay,
It's important to understand that.
Okay.
So direct notice has to happen.
got it. Okay.
And I think the testimony from one of the operators was they do that by regular mail. And if they don't get an acknowledgement, they also do that by certified mail. So that direct notice piece has to happen. This is really about the means through which they advertise that the auction is going to take place to the public.
Yeah. But just last question, last clarification. But that box that needs to be checked on the application for it to be in a newspaper or email, you're removing that piece from the application of the applicant for that lease. Is that right?
That's right. So there would be no longer requirement that there need to be an acknowledgement from the individual who's leasing the space, that the advertisement of that lien sale to the general public would be on a website.
Okay.
So basically, we're replacing the newspaper advertisement with the website, but there's no acknowledgement at the time of the contract of either. They don't Because these contracts could have been signed, like I've had my storage locker for 10 years. I don't even know what I signed 10 years ago. And I still pay my bill. But I wouldn't look in the newspaper. You know,
I think it's less about looking at the newspaper. I think it's less about the acknowledgement that it's happening or that it could be emailed to you. I'm okay with the newspaper piece. Obviously, we know why,
Yeah.
but it's just the acknowledgement that it's gonna be,
but it's also mail
Advertised.
or certified mail.
as long as, so my only point is that is because of what I was hearing earlier was that there was a checkoff that says that you don't have to not acknowledge it. And so I want to make sure that these families, or because some of them are families and not just business owners, that they're still being notified that it's going to auction and because of your failure to pay. And so they have ability to know what's happening with that.
Yes, they're still being notified.
That's what I need to know.
Senator Hayes.
Yeah, I think different issue, but similar concern. I think the bill as presented was perfect. I think where I'm having a difficulty is the new language that say at the sole discretion of the operator, because the way I read that, it says the sale of personal property stored in a lease space to satisfy a lien. If an applicant, if the occupant is in default, may be advertised at the sole discretion. So I'm okay if it's newspaper, email, but at the sole discretion, make it seem like they could, at their discretion, decide not to advertise at all. Right. And so I'm a little concerned about the new language. The original bill was just perfectly fine that they had to choose between those three things. I think modernizing it makes complete sense. Like not many people are doing emails and stuff like that, but leaving it to the sole discretion on whether or not they advertise it gives me a little bit of heartburn.
Senator, but isn't that saying they can choose the sole discretion whether they choose?
I'm not sure. That's what I'm asking.
Newspaper, electronic mail, or online on a website. They can choose which one. It's their discretion.
So it's at their discretion, in which that's the way. If that's
what I'm
the way
reading.
we interpret, is it okay if we could just? And I'm good with voting for it with that in there. Just if we could verify that that's what it truly is with the AG before, like we vote on it on the floor.
Before-
One eye, 2 eyes, 3.
Right.
Listing right now. This would be one of those 3.
That's what I'm.
But
That's
it's not,
That's
it
right.
may be advertised doesn't mean may, right? It means it has to be advertised, but it may be advertised these ways is what we're saying that
Mhm.
means. correct?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
what we're
that's
saying.
it.
Okay, but you'd like to get, yeah.
yeah. We could just get clarity. I'm fine if that's. Yeah, we could vote for it just to be sure. I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
those options are
How people
available.
get clarity.
Sure,
Okay,
happy to.
got it. So can I have a motion on the amended bill 633? Senator Hayes, seconded by Senator Plasmeyer. All in favor of the amended bill 633? Senator Washington, you okay? Okay, unanimously. Thank you. Okay, Patrick.
Okay, Senate Bill 694. This bill requires the Maryland Department of Health to contract with an independent consultant to study the Health Services Cost Review Commission, the Maryland Healthcare Commission, the Maryland Community Health Resources Commission, and the Maryland Insurance Administration to identify potential overlap in the duties of these agencies and recommend any changes in administrative structure that may improve the effectiveness and efficiency of these agencies. This was a bill that was heard yesterday.
So Senator Reedy moved favorable, Senator Hayes seconded. All in favor of Senate Bill 694? Anyone opposed? Senator Lamb? In favor? Okay, unanimous, thank you. I'm sorry, I disturbed you. Okay, Patrick.
Senate Bill 701, an emergency bill, alters the amount of funds that the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange may designate for annual subsidies under the state-based Young Adult Health Insurance Subsidies Pilot Program. For calendar 2024 and 2025, the exchange may designate up to 20 million, which has been the current allocation, plus any unspent funds designated for such subsidies in a previous calendar year to be used for the pilot program. So it's been the case that they have actually expended less money for the pilot program in the previous years of the pilot, and they want the ability to be able to access those unspent funds for these 2 additional remaining years of the pilot.
If this bill didn't take place, what would happen with the funds?
I think they would just sit in, that reinsurance fund and not be accessible for the
That's
program.
what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you. So Senator Classmeyer moved favorable. Do I have a second? Senator Hershey seconded. All in favor of Senate Bill 701? Anyone opposed? Everybody's okay. That's unanimous. Senate Bill 701. Thank you. Okay, Patrick, another one.
Okay. Senate Bill 821, this is also a study related bill. It would require the Maryland Insurance Administration to study professional employer organizations in the state, or PEOs. Some items in the study, the MIA would identify and compare the regulation of PEOs under federal and state law and in other states. Examine the regulatory structures for health insurance and PEOs in other states that allow individuals who are co-employed through a PEO arrangement and have a workplace employer that's a small employer to participate in the PEO's large group plan, and then determine potential the impact of proposed statutory changes in the state relating to offering of health coverage by PEOs on the small group market. The sponsor, Senator Feldman, has offered some amendments here that really I think are technical and clarifying, so that that the MIA must review requirements that businesses must meet to participate in PEO arrangements and to access professional PEO health plans. Then it would also require MIA to examine the regulatory structures under federal law as well, and then address any potential impacts of proposed statutory changes.
Second.
Okay. Senator Hayes moved favorable. Senator Classmeyer seconded. All in favor of Senate Bill 821? You have a question? Okay, before we vote,
I don't know what a PEO is.
it's a professional organization.
Oh, can
Like,
you name like one?
you could have like a group of engineers, maybe, we hear all these people come and say they represent the Maryland Association of something.
Yeah.
So we're trying to help people in small businesses to get reasonable group insurance.
Got it.
So this may allow them to buy it through their professional organizations.
Got
They
it.
can buy life insurance that way now. So this is an opportunity for them to buy health insurance.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor? Thank you. Unanimous. We have. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then 2 bills that are being withdrawn: Senate Bill 656, in Anne Arundel County alcoholic beverages bill, and then Senate Bill 971, also Howard County alcoholic beverages bill.
Yeah, consent calendar. Move unfavorable. Senator Hayes. Who seconded? Senator Reedy. Everyone in favor of the unfavorable on Senate Bill 656 and Senate Bill 971? Unanimous. Thank you. Senator Warsh, I'm assuming that you're unanimous. Okay.
Next bill on the list is Senate Bill 175, which, as shown in the reprint, requires an applicant for initial or renewal license to practice as a license or limited license to practice optometry to submit to a state and national criminal history records check. There are some amendments that require the board to consider certain factors when deciding whether to grant a license to an applicant after receiving criminal history record information, and that's what you see on page 4. And the amendment further moves to an uncodified section, a requirement that an applicant for renewal of a license submit evidence that they had completed the criminal history records check. The board describes these changes as clarifying in nature and recommended by DLS.
If this Brings it the same posture as House Bill. The House Bill's passed 138, nothing already.
So because the amendments were proposed by DLS, I suspect that's the case, but I have not directly confirmed it.
Good enough.
Senator Reedy?
I think I'm okay. I was just curious. I'm not gonna vote against it, but I was just curious why the need for, like, why this one is getting criminal background check.
So there are only 3 other boards that currently do not.
Oh, they do not. I
have-
was curious how many don't. Okay, that's fine. I'm
Right.
good.
The
Thank you very
remaining ones that do not require are the acupuncture board, dietetic practice, and the Board of Environmental Health Specialists.
Respectfully, acupuncture, I think, should be next. They poke people with things, so I think the criminal background check should be next for them, but thank you very much.
So do I have a motion? Oh, Senator Ellis.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So you mentioned, did I hear correctly, DLS put in some recommended amendments?
So the Department of Legislative Services recommended the amendments that you see before you, and the board agrees with them. And those amendments are clarifying in
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah, I'm just curious, this is my first time hearing that DLS
I don't know, they
But-
do it a lot.
amendments in, so. So who in DLS? I'm just curious about the mechanics.
The Department of Legislative Services is the,
Yeah, I know, but
Oh,
I mean, the DLS is an organization, so who's, they sit there every week.
so I think a better way to think about it is that DLS contacted the board. They said that we think that there are some amendments that would clarify the bill that you've introduced.
Yeah.
They prepared those amendments. The board took those amendments and then submitted them through the same process that the board always does. So I would say that if you're looking for a,
Yeah,
like a-
but who, I'm sorry, who in DLS does these things? I mean, they look at the bill and
the
Right.
amendment office.
up in office, so.
Yeah.
So they just on their own say that, hey, this needs to be done and.
So, when you submit, for example, a request for a bill, right, it comes into the bill drafting offices and then assigned to a drafter within DLS. And then if we have questions about your request, we contact you in order to work them out. The same thing happens if there's a bill that's been submitted or a bill that's been introduced and someone identifies a problem, they can contact the
Okay.
the
great.
office
Yeah,
and
thank
the
you.
office can work with
Yeah.
the, they are the same. Thank you for.
It just moves some.
Yeah, thank you,
Can I have a motion on Senate Bill
Move favorable.
175? Senator Classmeyer motioned, who second? And Senator Hayes second. So all in favor of Senate Bill 175? Okay, unanimous. Thank you.
Next bill on the list is Senate Bill 221, which authorizes any health occupations board that does not otherwise have statutory authority to do so to adopt regulations establishing reciprocity for individuals who are licensed or certified in another state that also has a similar reciprocity to individuals licensed and certified by the board in Maryland. The amendment removes the undefined term jurisdiction from provisions authorizing boards to enter into reciprocal agreements, limiting the boards to entering into agreements with other states.
Do I have any questions? Do I have a motion favorable?
Favorable.
Do I have, do I have a second? Second. So Senator Classmeyer motioned and Senator Hayes second. All in favor of Senate Bill 221? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Senate Bill 412 adds an individual with experience with mental health care for veterans or individuals serving in the military to the list of persons who can be appointed as a voting member to a county mental health advisory committee. No amendments, no fiscal impact, no opposition.
Any questions on Senate Bill 412? Do I have a motion?
Move favorable. Second.
Senator Classmeyer moved favorable, Senator Giles second. All in favor of Senate Bill 412? Any opposition to Senate Bill 412? Nope.
Senate Bill 600 requires the Department of Health to study the feasibility of including coverage with minimal benefit restrictions for 1, removable full and partial dentures, and 2, reimbursement for providers for house calls and extended care facility calls under the Healthy Smiles program. There's no amendments, no fiscal impact, no opposition. That's correct.
Would you need dentures Senator, you'll be glad that you voted.
Hope you're not on Medicare.
Senator Lamb, all in favor of Senate Bill 600? Unanimous, thank you.
Senate Bill 996 requires each advanced practice registered nurse practicing as an APRN in the state to notify a patient in writing if the APRN does not maintain professional liability insurance coverage, otherwise known as medical malpractice insurance, or if their professional liability insurance coverage has lapsed for a period of time and it has not been renewed. The committee received testimony that the requirements here are identical to those in place for physicians. There are no amendments. There's no fiscal impact.
Senator Glassmeyer, favorable. Senator Reedy, second. All in favor of Senate Bill 996? Okay, unanimous.
That's over to David.
Okay, the first bill on on page 2 of the yellow sheet is Senate Bill 98. It requires the Department of Housing and Community Development to study food deserts. The bill lays out all the elements they're supposed to study and when they are to report and to whom they are to report to. You have a reprint in front of you, and the sponsor has submitted an amendment to add additional items for the study to include or to study. You see what they are regarding available funding, develop strategies to attract grocery stores and supermarkets to food deserts, and review existing incentives and available financing programs throughout the state to encourage establishment in grocery stores and food deserts.
Senator Hayes has a question.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think this is already in current law, but I've been talking to some of our colleagues, and the sponsor of the bill, a really nice guy. I think he just want to deliver something for his district, and I understand how that is. There's already an interagency of food desert advisory committee. And so if we could just substitute department with interagency food desert advisory committee, I'm fine. If we could use that and substitute that amendment and then move the bill, I would be perfectly
I'll
fine.
second the amendment.
Can we do that verbally?
Yeah, you can do that. And before, I know Senator Washington has a question. There's a change also on the back of the bill. The report was supposed to go to Senate Committee on Education, Energy, and Environment, because that's where they thought the bill was going to be, but it ended up here. So we'll have to change that to the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee and the interagency.
I want to be the Debbie Downer.
And this, I
You're
think
so
Senator
nice.
Washington has a question.
Okay, so we have two amendments offered on the bill. Can I have a motion for the amended bill?
Second.
Thank you. So Senator Hayes motion, Senator Reedy second. All in favor of Senate Bill 98? Unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, the next bill is Senate Bill 119, Legally Protected Healthcare, Gender Affirming Treatment. The bill adds gender affirming treatment to the provisions from last year's legislation that would shield all individuals involved with providing gender affirming treatment, legal gender affirming treatment in the state of Maryland.
Okay, but there's no amendments.
No amendments.
Any questions? Senator Reedy.
Just a quick statement. So I know we talked about this at the hearing. We're not going to litigate what I believe are the fallacies in what we call gender affirming and versus not. I do just want to state that we should be looking, if we're talking about legally protecting healthcare from things in other states, we should be looking at probably a lot of other things as well. I do think in the not too distant future, we're going to look back and the things that we were calling gender affirming, we're going to be like, what the heck were we doing to, especially when it's people that are younger with irreversible types of procedures. But I don't have an amendment because this bill is pretty much what it is. So I'm going to be voting no.
I'm
Thank
sure
you.
we could not amend it in any way to get your vote. So
I don't think you like
Senator Lamb, did you move the bill yet? You did?
Okay.
We got a second?
So Senator Lamb motioned, Senator Giles seconded. All in favor of Senate Bill 119?
It's a party.
We got to count because we lost somebody. Okay, 7-3. Thank you. Bill passes 7-3.
Okay, the next bill is Senate Bill 374. This concerns individuals licensed by the EMS board. Last year, if you recall, you passed legislation prohibiting healthcare boards from asking certain information of folks applying for licenses and moved requirements over to the family law article, and where they can ask for social security numbers or other information as authorized by federal law. That's all for healthcare practitioners. This bill would bring in a subset of healthcare practitioners that weren't covered by that bill. And these folks are licensed under the education article, so it would be folks licensed by the EMS board.
That was that young lady who's been
Yes.
working for years.
Yes.
Do we have a motion for Senate Bill 374? Move favorable, Senator Klausmeyer. Senator Ellis, you're seconding. All in favor of Senate Bill 374? I think we have a 7-3. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The next bill is Senate Bill 403. This bill would add another group to accredit residential treatment centers. Right now, they're only allowed to be accredited under the Joint Commission for the purposes of continuing licensure in the state of Maryland. This brings in another group to do that. Group would be the Commission on Accreditation of Rehabilitation Facilities and the in addition to the Joint Committee.
Senator Klausmeyer moved favorable, Senator Lamb seconded. All in favor of Senate Bill 403, raise your hands. Unanimous, thank you.
And finally, the last bill on your list today is Senate Bill 648. It concerns business regulation, contractors, subcontractors, and brokers. The bill would prohibit a person from serving as a broker between a contractor or subcontractor in the state for 5 years if they are convicted of offenses constituting criminal malfeasance, misfeasance, nonfeasance under federal or state law.
Senator Ellis,
Yeah, Madam Chair, so the House passed this bill, they put on some floor amendments on it.
okay.
And we're trying to decipher that. It just came over today, so I wanted to, if we can hold this bill.
Are you asking to hold the bill?
Yes,
Then we
we
look at
hold
the
it.
amendments.
Yeah.
Okay, we are gonna hold Senate Bill 648. Thank you, Senator Ellis.
Okay, that's it.
Very good.
Liquor bills tomorrow.
Bills tomorrow and lunch.